rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years and let her sew again.
And welcome back to another video. So this time I am primarily focusing on a case. In my previous video I did that lilac colored 201 and I mentioned that I had a best version of a 201 in my lineup. And I do, but that one, because the paint and decals were so good, I am not stripping her, I'm not painting her or anything, just, you know, refurb of all of the components and making her beautiful. And I have actually done that already, and I'll show her to you in just a minute. But she goes in this case, and you know, these old mock alligator type cases, kind of ugly, you can see. And so what I'm going to do is make the case more beautiful. So I'm just going to walk you step by step through that. Let me tip the camera around and show you the machine. Okay, so I'm keeping her covered up because I don't want her to get dusty. So she is just a standard 201. She has, you know, everything is working fabulously. She has a new LED light. Redid everything that I normally do, but then just cleaned and polished and waxed her outside parts. And so I think she's beautiful because the paint is pretty much still good. You know, there's some minor surface scratching, but all in all, her decals are all set and everything. So she's good as is. She's going to be a classic. I think she's from 1947. I'll have to double check and look. But like I said, I'm just going to keep her covered up so no overspray or anything from my case will get on her, because I do my painting like way over there on that side of the room, but still I don't want that to happen. Okay, so a close-up look at her case. Her hardware's kind of rusty. She's got some nails left over from her old feet. I'll be pulling those out. But you can also see this alligator stuff, it's basically a glorified paper. You can see how it's worn off here. I'm not going to be peeling it off because I do feel that it's somewhat reinforcing the box, you know. So what I am going to do though is first clean it really good. And I have some heavy duty Lysol that I'm going to clean it with, especially the inside, because you know these boxes, they get that smell, that old musty kind of smell. And this is just paper here too, which I will be painting over. So let me get my Lysol and a rag and just clean the whole thing first. So while I'm cleaning the box, I'm just going to go ahead and pull these little nails out. Let's see if I can do one up here in the camera. Just my little clippers, pop them out, because I'm going to be filling in with glue and things, all of these rough edges. So you can see that when I pulled it out, all of this little crumbs and things came out. So that's another reason why I'm keeping the paper on, because I think it's holding that together. So, all right, so now that I have it wiped down and it smells much better, actually, I'm going to change this out. This is a brass brush. I'm going to change it out for a steel brush. But I'm going to hit all of the hardware pieces to see how clean I can get them. Okay, well that did help a lot. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a lot cleaner. I'm gonna go ahead and finish cleaning all the hardware. If I can't get it to where I think it would be beautiful up against the paint job I'm gonna put on, I might paint these. I do have some gold paint that would work well on them. So I'm just gonna use my little brush and finish cleaning all the hardware on the latches and the handle and everything like that. I've cleaned them off and I can tell, you know, I got all the loose, powdery rust kind of stuff off, but it's not clean and pretty. So what I'm gonna do is use a paint marker, and this is a bronze colored paint marker. It's almost a little bit more like a copper color. And so I am just going to color them like this, and I'll probably put a couple coats on, and then as I'm painting the machine, I'll clear coat over that. But I think that that's gonna give it a nice touch. Plus I have a little fine chisel point here, and you know, it'll keep it all contained. So that's what I'm gonna do with the hardware. What I'm also gonna be working on is, see, like all of these really frayed edges. I don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is get, you know, my old friend tacky glue, and I am going to coat this thing. Actually, let me go ahead and get a dish and a paintbrush, and I'll show you how I'm gonna coat it, because this will dry clear. All right, so what I wanna show you is I am just putting it on. This is my tacky glue here, fairly thickly where there's an issue, like right here on this corner, on the edge I wanna reinforce. Putting it fairly thickly there, and then just brushing it over the other parts. And this is gonna dry clear, but it's going to kind of disguise that alligator finish, I'm hoping. Give it a hand brushed kind of look. But the reason I don't remove the hardware is because they are just kind of brad nailed in there, but with these nails that crimp around, and I've tried removing them in the past, and it's ended up damaging the boxes so much that it's just really not worth it for me. So, you know, I leave them be. The hardware works, so not changing it. On the bottom here, I'm not going to worry too much about the texturing because it's the bottom, but I will be getting all of these sides, and probably once I'm done with this, I will start on the big cover. Again, doing the same thing where I make sure I have the problem areas heavily covered. Okay, and then just adding a lot of brush strokes in between. So I'm going to do this and then probably let this dry overnight, because I want it to be completely dry and cured before I start painting. I just wanted to show you that, and I will see you tomorrow. Welcome to the next day. I can tell that I can still see some of that texture from the mock croc kind of finish, but you can see all that shine that you see, that is the dried tacky glue. And my hope is that the dried tacky glue is going to give it kind of like a primer base, you know. So even though I can see some of that texture, I don't think it's quite as defined as before, so I am happy with that. It actually shines up really nice. That might be a way, if you wanted to keep that original color, just paint it with tacky glue and it will reinforce everything and just keep it shiny. You can see my hardware that I put one coat of that brass paint on. I'm going to go ahead and mask off all the hardware and the handles and everything and give her a nice paint. Alright, so I have the hardware masked off on both of these guys, hanging up on my rack, and I'm going to be painting them this brilliant blue. You need to shake it up well. After you hear the metal ball, shake it for at least another minute, you know. And what I'm planning on doing is giving it at least 2 coats and seeing how that looks. So I'll spray it really well once, and I am going to be spraying the inside also. And then after that dries for about 15 minutes, I'm going to give the whole thing a second coat. And then I'll decide if I need to do one more or not. Okay, so I actually painted a couple coats on her. Had to go and get some tires fixed. Came back and then I coated the inside here. can't tell, I know it's very dark, but trust me, I did. And now I'm just going to leave her alone for probably a couple days because I want this paint to be extremely dry, not tacky at all, but when I get started putting her decals on. So I'm just going to leave her be here for a little bit, but I can tell you that the combination of all the glue I used and the paint, I think has really successfully brought in all of those little frayed edges on the case. I don't think that we're going to be in any damage of them doing bad things. You know, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it is strong. It is not musty smelling anymore, and it is going to be fun. So when we get back next time, these will be cured, and I'll show you the decals. Okay, so welcome to another day here. I feel like my box is really dry, and I'm going to go ahead and work on pulling off my masking and get that tape off of the box. That's not good. And recovering probably with one more coat of my brass marker paint, all of the little hardware before I start on the decals. I wanted to tell you, I have switched over to these markers, which are the oil-based metallics. I think they're going to stick a lot better, so I still need to do my edging with my super fine tip version. Just getting a good first coat on there. Not perfect, no, but I think it looks a lot brighter and everything like that, so I'm kind of happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and put another coat on this side here, and then work on the hardware on the cover. Okay, so I want to show you what the marker looks like, and unfortunately, while I was working on it, there are a couple spots where you can see, like down there at the very bottom, where a bit of the marker got onto the box itself. Not terrible, but a little bit. Honestly, stepping back about a foot, no one's going to see. But I am going to be putting some decals along the sides, so those decals are actually going to kind of camouflage that, so I'm not really stressed about it. This is going to be the front of the box here, and there's going to be beautiful things here, and on the front and back of the big case. So I'm going to leave this alone, let this paint that I just put on all of the hardware is completely dry. I've got that one hanging up there. I've done its hardware also in the same tone and everything. So I think that the next step will be this evening when I put the decals on. All right, so the paint is dry on here. I think you can see there's some little spots where just the texture of this stuff, this mock croc, was damaged and everything, so you can kind of see that. I'm not going to pretend like it's not there, but at the same time, I think it does look a lot more cheerful. And, you know, with all of this paint and everything, it's wipeable now and things like that. So we are going to be going with a floral, and I'm going to try to center it up where this handle is. Now this machine, this case, the blue color that I painted it is dark enough that I didn't really feel comfortable using that's just a mistake in printing there, using a clear decal paper. So I used white, which is going to make the colors pop. If I used a clear, I'm thinking that the red flowers would kind of go dark on me here. So that's why you can kind of see a little bit of the white around it. That doesn't actually bother me. I think that's going to be fine. Actually, you know what? I'm going to trim these little guys off right here. I think that will look prettier. But let me trim these off, and then we'll get started with the water and get it set on. Okay, so I'm just putting my little decal into a little basin of water over here on the side. I know you can't see that. Trust me, it's very wet. And I want to look up here where this handle is and make sure that it's centered. I'm going to try to make it centered up and down and side to side. Well, that one completely broke apart. I do have another one, so you know it's not a total loss, but I wanted to show you. It just kind of completely snapped. I have found that these white ones are a lot more fragile than the clear ones that I have, and they are two different paper companies. This one is the 𝐩𝐥𝐤𝐿 paper company. The other one, I can't remember the brand. It's a slightly different brand. But yeah, I have found using these white ones before that they cracked easily. So I'm just going to get another one out, and I'm going to let it soak extra long and then try to set it on. Okay, so this one is going on a lot better. Keep from brushing this little leaf off. It keeps wanting to come off, but thankfully at this stage where everything is wet, I can pop it back on. Just carefully pressing out all the water that is trapped underneath, just to get it to be nice, adhere nicely. And then once I get all this water out, I am just going to set this little case top aside and let it dry overnight. Let any water that might be trapped underneath there, let it come out. And then I'm going to get started on the bottom piece. All right, so this is the front of the box. It's got the narrower strip here. And what I'm going to be doing is just lining up a little bit more floral across the front, just lining them up with the bottom edge of the box. These are similar color scheme as that 201 label that I put on the top part. And I think by putting them down here, one, they'll cover up, where it's a little bit rougher down there, but also it'll be able to designate what is the front of the box when you have the lid on it really clearly, so you can set it down the right way. So, like usual, I'm just trying to settle them on here in a place that looks, I don't want it to be exactly symmetrical because, that's not the way of natural flowers, but I do want them about the same distance from the edges here. So I'm just going to start off with this one, being able to gauge its approximate location, and then just work my way across, doing the same thing I usually do, just getting it nice and wet, putting it in place. Actually, I'm going to soak it a little bit longer just because these white ones are so fragile. I'll let it sit a little bit longer and then pull that paper backing out from behind it. Since these are smaller, I'm very hopeful that they'll come off a lot easier. All right, so I've just been kind of playing here. This is what I've got on the front so far, and on the sides, I'm still working on, layering up the sides. I'm doing flower garden-ishness. Once I get these done, I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow when I come in, if it looks like it needs it, I will spray a clear coat layer over them, just to give it some little extra protection and everything. And I think that that's going to be a good call for this. So when I come back tomorrow to do that, I will show you what my final outcome is on all of this. I still have some more decals over here to play with. And these, you can just kind of cut things apart and layer them, things on top of things, trying to get a depth of flowers going on here. And so, yeah, that's my process. I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. It is the next morning, and my decals were very, very dry. So I did give them a coating of my Diamond Coat clear coat, which I do love. So I got this one coated here, which needs to dry completely. And over here, I got that one coated, just the front panel. The rest of it is a gloss paint, so it still looks shiny. But the clear coating is more or less just to give a level of protection to the decals. So I'm going to let this dry before I put the little feet onto the box. The feet I'm going to screw on in the corners down here, and then we'll set the machine in and see how she looks.
Forgotten and alone, I touched her rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued, she'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years of use, and let her sew again.